I'm Mr. Midnight Hollow, your terrifying host, and you're about to hear that story in today's episode of Terrifying Encounters. Today, I've got a brutal tale of survival featuring a family's fight against werewolves in the Texas countryside, a bond between human and beast, tested by supernatural forces, and a battle that will leave you breathless. If you're already part of our community, your support means the world to us. Each like, comment, and share helps uncover more stories like this. Or subscribe to see what rises from the depths of darkness and unfolds before you. Now, let's begin. I never believed in fate until the day we found him. It was August 2019, and the Texas heat sat heavy over our farm like a wet blanket. My name is Mitchell Hartwell, and I'd been working this land outside Austin for 15 years, with my wife Diana and our 2 kids, Paige and Carson. 300 acres of cattle ranch, far enough from the city lights that you could see every star at night. That morning started like any other. I was checking the fence line near Brushy Creek when I heard it, a sound that didn't belong. Not the usual bawling of cattle or the rustle of armadillos in the brush. This was different, desperate. I followed the sound through the mesquite trees until I reached a dried-up creek bed. That's when I saw him, a baby gorilla. Maybe 6 months old, curled up against a limestone rock, dehydrated and weak. His dark eyes looked up at me with something I'd never seen in an animal before. Understanding. Recognition of his own mortality. My first thought was to call animal control. My second thought was that he'd be dead before they arrived. I radioed Diana. "You're not going to believe what I found." 20 minutes later, she arrived in the pickup with Paige and Carson bouncing in the back seat. Diana's a veterinarian, runs a practice in town for farm animals mostly, but she'd studied exotic species in college. She climbed down from the truck and went still when she saw him. "Mitchell, that's a western lowland gorilla." "I know what it is. How did it get here?" That was the question. We were 60 miles from the nearest zoo. No circuses had passed through, no reports of escaped animals. Just this baby, alone and dying in the Texas scrubland. Diana knelt beside him, checking his vitals with practiced hands. "He's severely dehydrated. Probably hasn't eaten in days." She looked up at me. "We need to get him to the house." "We should call." "He'll die, Mitchell. Look at him." Paige, our 12-year-old, had climbed out of the truck. "Dad, we have to help him." I looked at the creature. His breathing was shallow. His skin hung loose on his small frame. Those eyes watched me, waiting for a decision that would determine whether he lived or died. "Get him in the truck," I said. We set him up in the barn, in a stall we'd emptied out. Diana started an IV drip while I called in favors from every contact she had in the exotic animal world. Nobody had answers about where he came from. Nobody had reported a missing gorilla. It was like he'd materialized out of thin air. The kids named him Brutus. For the first week, we weren't sure he'd make it. Diana practically lived in that barn, monitoring his fluids, slowly introducing solid foods. Carson, who was 10, would sit outside the stall for hours, talking to him about video games and school. By week 2, Brutus was sitting up. By week 3, he was eating on his own. By week 4, he was playing. That's when I realized we had a problem. "We can't keep him," I told Diana one night in bed. "He's wild. He belongs with his own kind." "Where, Mitchell? We've contacted every sanctuary within 500 miles. Nobody has space, nobody has resources, and nobody can explain how he got here." "So what do we do?" She was quiet for a long time. "We raise him. Properly. With the right protocols. I'll get the permits we need. Diana, he'll die anywhere else. You know that." I did know that. I also knew that keeping a gorilla on a cattle ranch was insane. But when I went to the barn that night and saw Brutus sleeping in the straw, with Paige's stuffed bear tucked under his arm, I couldn't picture sending him away. The permits took 6 months. Diana pulled strings, called in favors, submitted endless paperwork to the USDA and Texas Parks and Wildlife. We had to modify the barn, create proper enclosures, meet safety standards. It cost us nearly $40,000 we didn't have. But we got approved. Brutus grew fast. Gorillas do. By his first birthday with us, he was the size of a large dog. By his second, he was as tall as Paige. His muscles developed thick and powerful under his black fur, his hands growing massive and capable of crushing bone. But he was gentle, impossibly gentle. He'd sit with Diana while she worked on her laptop, watching the screen with curiosity. He'd play catch with Carson in the yard, carefully tossing the ball back with precision that seemed almost human. Paige taught him simple sign language. Diana had learned it for work, and within months he could sign for food, water, play, and family. Family. That's what we'd become to him. The neighbors thought we were crazy. Hell, most of them were probably right. But driving home each day and seeing Brutus waiting by the fence, recognizing the sound of my truck, raising one massive hand in greeting, it felt right in a way I couldn't explain. By 2023, Brutus weighed 400 pounds. He was massive, with shoulders that could break through walls and arms thick as tree trunks. But he'd never shown aggression. Not once. He understood boundaries, respected space, showed empathy when one of us was upset. Diana said it was rare but not unprecedented. Gorillas raised by humans could bond completely with their adoptive families, seeing them as their troop. The ranch prospered during those years. Our cattle were healthy, the land produced well, and life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Austin kept growing, sprawling further out, but our corner of Travis County remained quiet. Rural, safe. I should have known it wouldn't last. It was late October 2024 when things started changing. The first sign was the livestock. Bill Henderson, who ran the ranch 3 miles east, lost 2 calves in one night. Found them in the morning, torn apart. Not eaten, just destroyed. Like something had killed for sport. "Coyotes," Bill said at the feed store. "Getting bolder." But I'd seen coyote kills. This wasn't that. 2 weeks later, Martha Simmons lost a horse, a full-grown mare, 1,500 pounds, found in her pasture with her throat ripped out. The wound was massive, like something had grabbed her and shaken her until she broke. The county sheriff, Tom Briggs, came out to investigate. He'd been a friend since high school, had helped us navigate the legal maze of keeping Brutus. "What do you make of it?" I asked him, standing over what was left of Martha's horse. Tom squatted down, examining the wounds with a flashlight even though it was midday. "I don't know, Mitch. Attack pattern's wrong for a mountain lion. Too aggressive. And the size of these marks." He pointed to deep gouges in the horse's neck. "I've never seen anything like it. Could it be a bear? Not this far south, not this time of year." He stood up, dusting off his knees. "Keep your family close, lock up at night, and keep Brutus secured." That last part stuck with me. "You think Brutus?" "I don't think anything yet, but people are scared. They're looking for explanations. A 400-pound gorilla living on a ranch? That's going to be the first thing they point to." He was right. By the end of the week, I'd gotten 3 calls from neighbors suggesting, in polite Texas fashion, that maybe we should reconsider our exotic pet situation. I tried explaining that Brutus never left our property, that he was docile, that Diana monitored him constantly. But fear doesn't listen to reason. The attacks continued. Another calf. 3 sheep from the Peterson farm. A dog that had wandered too far from its yard. Each kill was brutal, excessive, done with a violence that seemed personal. The temperature dropped as November arrived. Unseasonable cold front pushed down from the north, bringing the kind of chill that made your bones ache. The attack stopped for a few days, and people started to relax. Then Dennis Crawford disappeared. Dennis was a farmhand who worked for Bill Henderson, 32 years old, ex-military, tough as nails. He'd been checking fence lines on the eastern property when he just vanished. They found his truck the next morning, door open, engine still running, radio playing country music to an empty cab. No blood, no signs of struggle. Just gone. Search parties combed the area for 3 days. Helicopters with thermal imaging, dogs, volunteers from town. Nothing. On the 4th day, they found him. Or what was left of him. I wasn't part of the search party that made the discovery, but Tom told me about it later, over whiskey at my kitchen table, his hands shaking as he poured his 3rd glass. It was in a ravine about 2 miles from where we found his truck, Tom said. Took us so long because it wasn't all in one place. Tom. His head was 50 feet from his torso, Mitch. Arms torn off, legs bent backwards at angles that aren't possible. And the smell. He drank deeply. Like a slaughterhouse in summer. Diana had sent the kids to bed early. She sat beside me now, her face pale. What could do that? I don't know. Medical examiner said the force required to dismember a body like that. It's not human. The bite marks on his ribs, the claw patterns. Tom looked at me. People are saying it's Brutus. That's impossible. Brutus was here all night. We have him on camera. I know. I've seen your security footage. But you need to understand what's happening out there. Dennis was popular. People are angry. They're scared. And they need something to blame. Brutus didn't do this. I believe you. But 3 county commissioners are already calling for him to be removed, sent to a sanctuary or put down. There's talk of a town meeting. I felt Diana's hand find mine under the table. They can't do that. They can, and they will, unless we figure out what's really happening. Tom stood up, steadying himself against the table. Lock everything down tonight. Windows, doors, barn. Don't let anyone outside after dark. After he left, Diana and I sat in silence for a long time. Upstairs, I could hear Paige and Carson moving around in their rooms, pretending to sleep. We should check on Brutus, Diana finally said. We walked to the barn through cold that bit at exposed skin. The motion lights flickered on as we approached, casting long shadows across the gravel. Inside, Brutus sat in his enclosure, watching us with those intelligent eyes. Diana opened the gate. We'd stopped locking it years ago, and Brutus came forward. He was massive now, his head level with my chest even when he was on all fours. But he moved to Diana gently, signing, "Safe?" with his hands. "Yes, buddy," she said, running her fingers through the thick fur on his arm. "We're safe." But as I looked at Brutus, at this creature we'd raised from near death, I couldn't shake the feeling that Tom was right to be worried. Something was out there in the darkness, something that killed with intelligence and rage. And whatever it was getting closer. The morning after Dennis Crawford's body was found, I woke to the sound of trucks on our road. Not just 1 or 2, a convoy. I rolled out of bed and looked through the window to see at least a dozen pickups crawling past our gate, heading toward town. Some had dogs in the beds. Others had gun racks visible through the rear windows. Diana was already downstairs, watching through the kitchen window with her arms crossed. "They're organizing," she said without turning around. I heard it on the scanner. They're meeting at the high school to plan another search. Search for what? They found Dennis. For whatever killed him. Paige came down the stairs, still in her pajamas. At 14 now, she looked more like Diana every day. Same sharp features, same way of reading a room instantly. Are they going to hurt Brutus? No, honey, Diana said, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Carson appeared in the doorway, his hair sticking up in all directions. I want to see him. I want to make sure he's okay. After breakfast, I said. We all go together. We ate in silence, scrambled eggs and toast that none of us wanted. Through the window, I watched the last of the trucks disappear down the road, trailing dust in the cold morning air. The thermometer outside read 38 degrees Fahrenheit, unusually cold for Texas in November. After we finished, we walked to the barn as a family. The motion lights had burned out overnight. I'd need to replace them, so we relied on the thin morning sun. Our breath came out in visible clouds. Brutus was awake, sitting in the corner of his space, watching the door. When he saw us, he stood and moved forward. He was enormous now, easily 500 pounds, his shoulders broad and powerful, but his eyes held the same gentle intelligence they always had. Carson ran to him, and Brutus knelt down, bringing himself to the boy's level. They had a ritual. Carson would tap Brutus's chest 3 times, and Brutus would tap back. Then they'd hug. I don't think they understand, Paige said quietly, standing beside me. Nobody who knows him could think he'd hurt anyone. Fear makes people irrational, Diana said. They need an answer, and Brutus is the easiest one. I walked closer to him, and Brutus extended one massive hand toward me. A greeting, an acknowledgement. I touched my palm to his, feeling the rough calluses on his knuckles, the warmth of his skin beneath the fur. We're not going to let anything happen to you, I told him. Brutus signed something, and Diana translated. He knows something's wrong. He can smell it on us. Gorillas had an incredible sense of smell, better than dogs in some ways. If we were scared, Brutus knew it. The day passed slowly. I tried to work. There were fences to mend, cattle to check, but I couldn't focus. Every hour another vehicle would pass on the road, heading to or from town. The search party growing, organizing, mobilizing. By afternoon, Tom called. They found tracks, he said without preamble. About a mile from where we found Dennis. Game warden says they're canine, but wrong. Too big. Stride length doesn't match any known predator in Texas. Wolf? Not unless we've got wolves the size of horses now. He paused. There's something else. Bill Henderson's place got hit last night. Lost 5 more calves. But this time, someone saw something. My grip tightened on the phone. Who? Bill's son, Travis. He was in the house. Heard the cattle going crazy around 2 in the morning. Grabbed his rifle and went to check. Says he saw something in the pasture, moving between the calves. What was it? He won't say, or can't. Just keeps saying it was big, and it moved wrong. Like it was a man, but not. When he fired a warning shot, it looked at him. Then it ran. Travis is a tough kid, Mitch. Marine Corps vet. But he's shaking so bad he can barely hold a coffee cup. I looked out the kitchen window toward the barn. Tom, you need to see Brutus. You need to verify he was here, on camera, during all of this. I'm on my way. He arrived 20 minutes later with a deputy I didn't recognize. Young guy, maybe 25, with the rigid posture of someone trying to prove themselves. They reviewed our security footage while Diana and I watched over their shoulders. The cameras covered every angle of Brutus's enclosure and the surrounding barn. The footage was clear. Brutus had been there all night, sleeping until dawn, never leaving his space. This doesn't prove anything, the deputy said. Could be doctored. It's time-stamped, Diana shot back. Linked to an off-site server. There's no way to alter it. Tom nodded slowly. I believe you. But Mitch, you need to understand what we're dealing with. 3 county commissioners are drafting an emergency order to have Brutus seized and relocated. They're calling it a public safety measure. On what grounds? I stood up. You just saw proof he wasn't involved. On the grounds that people are terrified, and they're looking for action. Logic doesn't matter right now. When? Probably tomorrow, maybe the day after. They're trying to find a facility that will take him. After they left, Diana and I sat at the kitchen table, not speaking. The house felt too quiet. Paige and Carson were upstairs, probably listening through the vents like they used to when they were younger. We could move him, Diana finally said. Take him somewhere ourselves. There's a sanctuary in Colorado that... He'd never make it. He's too bonded to us. The stress alone could kill him. Then what do we do? I didn't have an answer. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I got up and walked to the barn. The new motion lights I'd installed flickered on as I approached, casting harsh white light across the gravel. Brutus was awake, sitting near the front of his enclosure. When he saw me, he moved closer, pressing his face against the heavy-gauge chain link we'd installed years ago. It was designed to contain gorillas, rated for animals twice his size. But looking at him now, I wondered if it would hold if he ever decided to leave. Hey, buddy, I said softly. Can't sleep either? He watched me with those dark, intelligent eyes. Then he signed something. Danger. I felt my chest tighten. Yeah, there's danger. He signed again. Protect family. I know you would, but right now we need to protect you. I sat down on the cold concrete floor, my back against the wall. Brutus moved to mirror my position on the other side of the fence, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his massive body. We sat like that for nearly an hour, not moving, just being present. It reminded me of the first night we'd brought him home, when he'd been so small and fragile. Now he was a giant, capable of incredible strength but still gentle, still trusting. A sound pulled me from my thoughts, distant, coming from the east near the tree line that marked the edge of our property. It wasn't our cattle. I knew their sounds intimately. This was different, lower, more guttural. Brutus heard it too. His head snapped toward the sound, his posture changing instantly. His shoulders tensed, his hands curled into fists. A low rumble built in his chest, not quite a growl, but close. I stood up slowly, moving to the barn door. The motion lights extended maybe 50 feet into the darkness. Beyond that, nothing but shadows and the skeletal branches of winter-stripped trees. The sound came again. Closer now. It reminded me of a dog, but deeper, richer, with an intelligence behind it that made my skin crawl. Brutus moved to the front of his enclosure, his eyes locked on the darkness beyond the lights. The rumble in his chest grew louder. Then I saw it. Just at the edge of the light, where visibility blurred into darkness, a shape, low to the ground at first, then rising. Standing on 2 legs where it should have been on 4, it was massive, easily 7 feet tall, maybe more. Its body was covered in dark fur that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But the proportions were wrong. Too much muscle in the shoulders, arms too long, head shaped wrong for any animal I knew. And then it turned its face toward the barn. The motion lights caught its eyes, reflecting back yellow-green like a cat's, but larger. Its mouth opened, revealing teeth that were too long, too sharp. It made a sound that was half bark, half human scream. Every instinct told me to run. To get back to the house, lock the doors, call for help. But my legs wouldn't move. I stood frozen, watching this thing watch me back. Brutus went wild. He slammed against the fence with enough force to shake the entire structure. His roar filled the barn, a sound I'd never heard him make, full of rage and challenge. He hit the fence again, and I heard metal groan under the impact. The creature in the darkness tilted its head, studying Brutus. Then, impossibly, it smiled. A human expression on an inhuman face. And it vanished. Not ran. Not retreated. It was there one moment and gone the next, leaving only disturbed leaves spinning in its wake. I stood in the barn doorway, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to process what I'd just seen. Behind me, Brutus continued to rage against the fence, his massive hands gripping the chain link hard enough to bend it. When I finally found my voice, it came out as a whisper. What the hell was that? I didn't tell Diana what I saw that night. How could I? What would I even say? That I'd watched something that looked like a wolf standing on two legs smile at me before vanishing into thin air? She'd think I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. But Brutus knew. When I finally managed to calm him down enough to leave the barn, his eyes followed me with an awareness that went beyond animal instinct. He'd seen it too. And whatever it was, it had triggered something primal in him. A recognition of threat, of enemy, of something that needed to be destroyed. I spent the rest of the night sitting in the living room with my grandfather's Winchester across my lap, watching the windows. Diana found me there at dawn, still awake, still watching. Mitchell. She sat down beside me, her hand finding mine. What happened? Something was out there last night, near the barn. What kind of something? I wanted to tell her. But in the pale morning light, with the smell of coffee brewing and the ordinary sounds of our home waking up, the words seemed insane. I don't know. It was big. Brutus went crazy when he saw it. She studied my face for a long moment. You're scared? Yeah? So am I. We sat in silence until the kids came downstairs. Paige took one look at us and knew something was wrong. But Carson was oblivious, talking about a video game he wanted to download. Normal teenage concerns. I envied him that ignorance. Tom called at 8. There was another attack last night, the Morrison farm, about 4 miles north of you. 3 cows dead. Same pattern, torn apart, excessive force, signs of intelligence in how it hunted. My hand tightened on the phone. What time? Sometime between 1 and 3 in the morning. Why? Because I saw something at our place. Around 2. There was a long pause. What did you see? I don't know how to describe it. It was big, moved wrong, stood on 2 legs when it should have been on 4. Another pause, longer this time. Mitch, I need you to come to town. There's someone I want you to meet. Who? Just come. Bring Diana if you can. We left the kids at home with strict instructions not to leave the house. Carson complained, but one look from Diana shut him down. The drive to town took 20 minutes, past farms where people stood in their yards watching the road, guns visible. The fear had spread like wildfire. Tom met us at the sheriff's office, a squat brick building that had been there since the 50s. Inside, sitting at Tom's desk, was a man I'd never seen before. He looked to be in his 60s, with silver hair and the weathered face of someone who'd spent most of his life outdoors. His hands were scarred, his eyes sharp. This is Robert Navarro, Tom said. He's a wildlife specialist from New Mexico. I called him yesterday after we found Dennis. Navarro stood up, shaking our hands with a grip that was surprisingly strong. Your sheriff tells me you've been experiencing unusual predator activity. That's putting it mildly, I said. Tell me what you saw last night. I described it as best I could. The shape, the size, the way it moved and stood. The intelligence in its eyes. The smile. When I finished, Navarro exchanged a look with Tom that I couldn't read. What? Diana asked. What is it? Navarro pulled out a folder from a worn leather bag. Inside were photographs, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes. I've been tracking similar cases for 30 years. Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado. Reports of livestock deaths that don't match any known predator. Witnesses seeing things that shouldn't exist. He spread the photos across the desk. They showed carnage similar to what we'd been seeing, animals torn apart with brutal efficiency. But there were other photos too. Blurry images of something caught in trail cameras, massive shapes that looked canine but wrong. Too big, too human in their posture. What are they? I asked. The locals have different names for them, skinwalkers, rougarou, lobosamum, but they're all describing the same thing, something that's part human, part animal. Something that hunts with intelligence and malice. Diana leaned forward. You're talking about werewolves. I'm talking about something that's been documented for centuries across multiple cultures. Whether you call it a werewolf or something else doesn't matter. What matters is that it's real, and it's here. I wanted to laugh, wanted to tell him he was crazy, but I'd seen it. Seen the thing standing at the edge of my property, smiling at me with teeth that belonged in nightmares. So what do we do? Tom asked. Silver doesn't work if that's what you're thinking. That's Hollywood fiction. But they can be killed. They're mortal, just extremely difficult to bring down. They heal fast, they're strong, and they're smart. Smarter than most humans. How do you kill them? Navarro pulled out another photo. It showed a massive wolf-like skull with a bullet hole through the eye socket. Catastrophic damage to the brain or heart. Decapitation works too if you can manage it. But getting close enough to do any of that. He shook his head. Most people don't survive the attempt. Why is it here? Diana asked. Why now? Could be territorial migration. Could be it was drawn here by something. They're attracted to conflict, to violence, to places where the barriers between human and animal nature are thin. He looked at me. You have a captive gorilla on your property, a wild animal living in a human world. That's exactly the kind of contradiction that would interest a creature like this. My stomach dropped. It's hunting Brutus. Or Brutus represents competition. Either way, your property is the focal point. The other attacks... He gestured to Tom's map of the county, where red pins marked each incident. They're all within a 5-mile radius of your ranch. It's establishing territory, eliminating threats, and moving toward a confrontation. With Brutus. With whatever it perceives as the alpha in this territory. Right now, that's your gorilla. Diana's face had gone pale. We need to move him. Get him somewhere safe. You can't, Navarro said bluntly. Moving him now would be a death sentence. He is bonded to your family. The stress of relocation would make him vulnerable. And besides, he looked at Tom. You couldn't get the permits processed in time. This thing is escalating. Based on the pattern, it'll make its move within the next few days. Then what do we do? I asked. You fortify, you prepare, and you hope that when it comes, you're ready. We spent the next 2 hours going over plans. Navarro had equipment in his truck. Motion sensors, high-intensity lights, even some specialized ammunition that he claimed would slow the creature down long enough to finish it. Tom promised to station a deputy at our property, though I could see in his eyes he knew one deputy wouldn't be enough. When we finally left town, the sun was past its peak, casting long shadows across the road. Diana drove while I stared out the window, watching the landscape I'd known my whole life suddenly seem alien and threatening. Do you believe him? Diana asked quietly. I don't know what I believe anymore, but I know what I saw. If this thing comes to our property, if it goes after Brutus, Brutus can handle himself. You've seen how strong he is. Strong against humans, maybe, against other gorillas, but against something that can rip apart horses and cattle like paper. She gripped the steering wheel tighter. Mitchell, He's never had to fight for his life. We raised him gentle. What if that gets him killed? I didn't have an answer to that. When we got home, Paige met us at the door. Her face was tight with worry. Something's wrong with Brutus. He won't eat. He just keeps pacing and staring at the tree line. We went to the barn together. Brutus was exactly as Paige described, moving back and forth in his enclosure, his eyes fixed on the eastern property line. When he saw us, he came over, signing frantically. "Danger," Diana translated. "Coming. Protect family." "We know, buddy," I said, putting my hand against the fence. "We're going to be ready." But as I looked into his eyes, I saw something that terrified me more than the creature in the darkness. Brutus knew what was coming, and he was preparing for war. That night, we installed Navarro's equipment, motion sensors every 50 feet around the barn and house, floodlights that could turn night into day at the flip of a switch. Tom's deputy, a stocky guy named Martinez, set up in his patrol car near the main gate with a shotgun and a direct line to the sheriff's office. I sat on the porch with the Winchester, watching the darkness gather. Diana was inside with the kids, all of them under strict orders to stay away from windows. The temperature had dropped again, 35 degrees Fahrenheit, and my breath came out in clouds. Around 10 p.m., the first motion sensor went off. The floodlights blazed to life, illuminating the eastern tree line. Nothing, just branches moving in the wind. 15 minutes later, another sensor, this time to the north. Again, nothing visible. It was testing our defenses, learning our patterns. Martinez called it in to Tom. "Whatever's out here, Sheriff, it's smart, real smart." At midnight, every motion sensor went off simultaneously. The night exploded with light, and I saw them. Not one creature, but three. Massive shapes moving through the illuminated area with predatory grace. They didn't run from the light. They walked through it, deliberately, showing themselves. The largest one, the same one I'd seen the night before, stopped at the edge of our property. It looked directly at the barn, then at me. Its lips pulled back in that horrible smile. Behind me, I heard Brutus roar. Not a call of fear, a battle cry. And I knew Navarro had been wrong about one thing. We didn't have days, we had hours. Martinez got out of his patrol car with his shotgun raised. "Mr. Hartwell, get inside the house, now." I didn't move. I couldn't. The three creatures stood at the property line, backlit by our floodlights, their shadows stretching impossibly long across the frost-covered ground. They weren't attacking. Not yet. They were waiting. "Mitchell!" Diana's voice came from the doorway behind me. "Please, come inside." The largest one, the Alpha, took one step forward. Just one. Testing. Martinez fired a warning shot into the air. The sound cracked through the night, sharp and final. The creatures didn't flinch. The Alpha's head tilted, almost curious, like it was trying to understand why we thought noise would frighten it. Then it opened its mouth and made a sound that turned my blood to ice. It started as a howl, low and resonant, but halfway through it shifted into something else. Something that sounded like laughter. Human laughter twisted through animal vocal cords. The other two joined in, creating a chorus that echoed across the ranch. Our cattle stampeded in their pen. Dogs from neighboring farms started barking, a wave of sound spreading outward into the night. And then they were gone. Not running away, just suddenly absent, leaving only disturbed earth where they'd stood. Martinez lowered his shotgun with shaking hands. What in God's name was that? "Get inside," I said. "Radio Tom, tell him they're here." We gathered in the living room, me, Diana, the kids, and Martinez. I locked every door, checked every window. Paige sat on the couch with Carson pressed against her side. Both of them pale and silent. Diana was on the phone with Tom, her voice low and urgent. They'll be here in 20 minutes, she said, hanging up. Tom, Navarro, and 3 more deputies. That's not enough, Martinez said. He was young, maybe 26, and this was probably the first time he'd faced something his training hadn't prepared him for. Did you see the size of those things? We need the National Guard. And tell them what? I asked. That we've got werewolves attacking a ranch? By the time anyone believes us, people will be dead. People are already dead, Diana said quietly. Dennis Crawford, Martha's horse, Bill's cattle. How many more before this ends? A crash from the barn cut through the conversation. We all froze. Then another crash, followed by Brutus's roar, full of rage and challenge. I grabbed the Winchester and was out the door before Diana could stop me. Martinez followed, his shotgun raised. The motion sensors had gone silent, the floodlights still blazing but illuminating nothing except empty space and frost. The barn door hung open. I hadn't left it that way. Inside, Brutus was throwing himself against his enclosure with enough force to buckle the metal frame. The chain-link fence we'd installed, designed to hold animals twice his size, was bent outward in 3 places, the metal supports groaning under repeated impacts. "Brutus, stop!" I shouted. He didn't stop. His eyes were wild, unfocused. He grabbed the fence and pulled, and I heard rivets pop free from the concrete. He was going to tear his way out. "What's he doing?" Martinez asked. "He smells them. He knows they're coming." Diana arrived with Navarro's equipment bag. Inside were the motion sensors we hadn't deployed yet, extra ammunition and something else, a large hunting knife with a blade that gleamed silver in the fluorescent lights. "Navarro said silver doesn't work," I said. "He said silver bullets don't work. This is different. It's been blessed, treated with something he wouldn't specify. Said if we need to get close, this is what we use." "Get close?" Martinez laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Lady, I'm not getting within 50 feet of those things if I can help it." Brutus hit the fence again. This time an entire support beam came free, the metal screaming as it bent. He was almost through. "We need to let him out," I said. Diana stared at me. "What?" "Look at him. He's going to hurt himself trying to break free. And if those things come here, trapped in that enclosure, he's dead. Out in the open, at least he has a chance." "Mitchell, if we let him out, we lose control. What if he runs? What if he attacks someone?" "He won't. You know he won't. He's trying to protect us, Diana. That's all he's ever done." She looked at Brutus, then back at me. Finally, she nodded. I approached the enclosure slowly. "Brutus! Hey, buddy. Look at me." His massive head swung toward me. Some of the wildness faded from his eyes. "I'm going to open the gate. But you need to stay close to the barn. You understand? Stay close. Protect the family." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he signed, "Protect family." I opened the gate. Brutus didn't charge out. He walked deliberately, his shoulders rolling with muscle. In the open space of the barn, his full size became apparent. Over 6 feet tall when standing upright, 500 pounds of raw power. His hands could crush skulls. His arms could tear apart steel. But he came to me gently, pressing his forehead against my chest. The gesture of trust we'd shared for years. "Good boy," I whispered. "Good boy." The motion sensors started screaming, all of them, simultaneously, every direction. Martinez ran to the barn door, looking out into the floodlit night. "I don't see anything." "The sensors are going crazy, but there's nothing there." "They're testing us," I said, "trying to get us to waste ammunition, wear down our nerves." Tom's truck appeared on the road, headlights cutting through the darkness. 2 more vehicles followed, Navarro's SUV and another patrol car. They pulled up to the house in a cloud of dust. Tom came into the barn with Navarro, and 2 more deputies I recognized from town. They all stopped when they saw Brutus standing free. "Jesus Christ, Mitch," Tom said. "What are you doing?" "What I have to." Navarro studied Brutus with the same clinical interest he'd shown the photographs earlier. "Remarkable. I've never seen a gorilla that size outside of captivity. How much does he weigh?" "About 500 pounds, Diana said. "And he's bonded to your family?" "Yes." Navarro nodded slowly. "Good. Because those things out there, the alpha probably weighs close to 300 pounds in its transformed state. Fast, intelligent, and capable of killing a man in seconds. Your gorilla is the only advantage you have." "So what's the plan?" Tom asked. "We fortify positions around the house and barn. 3-man teams, overlapping fields of fire. When they come, and they will come, we focus fire on the alpha. Kill it, and the others might retreat. Or they might go into a frenzy," Navarro added. "Pack dynamics are complicated with werewolves. Sometimes killing the alpha breaks them. Sometimes it makes them more dangerous." "Fantastic," Martinez muttered. We spent the next 30 minutes setting up. Navarro had brought specialized rounds, not silver, but something he called trauma loads, designed to inflict maximum damage. He distributed them among the deputies while explaining shot placement. "Forget what you've seen in movies, headshots or center mass only. These things heal from peripheral wounds in minutes. You need to do catastrophic damage." I took up position near the barn with Diana and Brutus. Tom and 2 deputies covered the house where Paige and Carson were locked in the upstairs bathroom, the most secure room we had. Navarro and Martinez positioned themselves between the 2 locations, creating a triangle of defense. The temperature had dropped to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. Our breath came out in clouds. The floodlights cast everything in harsh white, creating deep shadows at the edges of visibility. 1 a.m. came and went. Then, 2. The motion sensors had gone silent an hour ago, and the quiet was worse than the alarms. It felt like the whole world was holding its breath. At 2:30, the lights went out. All of them. Floodlights, motion sensors, even the house lights. Darkness crashed down like a physical weight. "Generator's been cut," Navarro's voice came through the radio. "They're smart. Thermal optics everyone, now." I fumbled with the night vision scope Navarro had given me. The world resolved into shades of green. I could see Tom's position at the house, Navarro and Martinez in the middle, Diana beside me, and I could see them. They'd surrounded us. Not 3 anymore, at least 6, maybe more, moving through the darkness with predatory patience. Their thermal signatures glowed bright against the cold ground, massive shapes circling our positions. "Contact," Tom said over the radio. "Multiple targets, all sides." "Hold fire," Navarro ordered. "Let them commit." The alpha appeared 50 feet from the barn. It walked on 2 legs, its posture almost human, head held high. Even through the night vision, I could see the intelligence in its eyes. It was looking at me, evaluating. Then it looked at Brutus. Brutus had moved in front of Diana and me, placing his bulk between us and the threat. His posture mirrored the alpha's, upright, dominant, challenging. 500 pounds of muscle and bone ready to fight. The alpha's lips pulled back, revealing teeth that gleamed in the ambient light. It dropped to all 4s, and I saw its muscles bunch. "It's going to charge," I said into the radio. "Let it," Navarro responded. "First one to commit, everyone focus fire." The alpha charged. It moved faster than anything that size should be able to move, closing the distance in seconds. I raised the Winchester, finding its chest in my sights, beginning to squeeze the trigger. Brutus met it halfway. The impact sounded like a car crash. 500 pounds of gorilla colliding with 300 pounds of werewolf at full speed. They went down in a tangle of fur and muscle, rolling across the frozen ground. The other creatures attacked. Gunfire erupted from all three positions. I lost sight of the Alpha and Brutus as another werewolf came at us from the left. Diana fired her pistol, Navarro's trauma rounds punching through its shoulder. It stumbled but kept coming. I shot it in the chest. The Winchester's round hit center mass, and the creature went down, but even as it fell, I could see the wound starting to close. "They're healing!" Martinez shouted over the radio. "The rounds aren't stopping them!" To my right, Brutus and the Alpha were locked in combat. The werewolf's claws raked across Brutus's chest, drawing blood. Brutus responded by grabbing the creature's front leg and twisting. I heard bone crack. The werewolf screamed, a sound that was human and animal simultaneously. It tried to pull away, but Brutus held on, his massive hands clamping down like vices. He swung the creature into the ground once, twice, 3 times, each impact creating a crater in the frozen earth. Then he raised it above his head and threw it into the barn wall. The impact buckled the metal siding. The werewolf slid down, limping, bleeding from multiple wounds. But it was already starting to heal, already preparing for another attack. More gunfire from the house. Tom's voice over the radio. "2 down but getting back up. We need that silver knife." "On my way," Navarro responded. The werewolf I'd shot was back on its feet, favoring its wounded shoulder but still mobile. It circled around, trying to flank us. Diana tracked it with her pistol, but I could see she was shaking. Brutus grabbed the Alpha by the throat. The werewolf tried to bite him, its jaws snapping inches from Brutus's face. But Brutus's grip was unbreakable. He squeezed, and the Alpha's eyes went wide. It clawed at Brutus's arms, drawing deep furrows that bled freely. But Brutus didn't let go. He squeezed harder. The Alpha's struggles became frantic. It thrashed and twisted, trying desperately to break free. Its pack responded, 3 of them converging on Brutus from different angles. "Brutus, behind you!" I shouted. He couldn't hear me over the roar of combat. The first werewolf hit him from the side, its claws ripping into his ribs. The second went for his legs, trying to bring him down. The third lunged for his exposed back. I shot the third one in the head. The round punched through its skull, and it dropped instantly. Dead or unconscious, I couldn't tell. Diana emptied her pistol into the one attacking Brutus's legs. Her shots were precise, professional. Years of euthanizing suffering animals had taught her where to aim. The werewolf collapsed, both rear legs shattered. But the one on Brutus's side was still tearing at him, opening wounds that bled heavily. Brutus released the Alpha and spun, catching the attacker mid-strike. He grabbed it by the head with one hand and the shoulder with the other, and he pulled. The werewolf's neck stretched, vertebrae popping. It shrieked, trying to break free, but Brutus was beyond reason now, beyond mercy. He pulled harder, his muscles straining. The werewolf's neck snapped. He didn't stop. He kept pulling until the head came free entirely, separated from the body in a spray of blood that painted the frost-covered ground black in the night vision. The body convulsed once and went still. No healing, no regeneration. Decapitation worked. "Brutus!" Diana's scream cut through the chaos. The Alpha had recovered. It lunged while Brutus was distracted, its jaws clamping onto Brutus's shoulder. I heard flesh tear, saw blood spray. Brutus roared in pain, but couldn't get a grip. The Alpha was too fast, too practiced at killing. It released and bit again, this time at Brutus's neck. If it got a solid grip there, it was over. I ran forward, pulling the silver knife from my belt. It felt warm in my hand, almost alive. 20 feet. 15. The Alpha was focused entirely on Brutus, trying to position for a killing bite. 10 feet. I jumped onto its back. The werewolf's fur was coarse and thick, its body radiating heat. It bucked, trying to throw me off, but I wrapped my legs around its torso and raised the knife. "For Dennis Crawford," I said. I drove the blade into the base of its skull. The effect was immediate. The alpha convulsed, its whole body seizing. Whatever Navarro had treated the knife with, it worked. The creature's strength left it in seconds, its legs giving out. It collapsed, taking me with it. I pulled the knife free and stabbed again, this time into its chest, searching for the heart. The blade sank deep, and the werewolf made a sound like steam escaping. Its eyes met mine. Human eyes in an inhuman face. Then the light left them. The remaining werewolves broke and ran. I heard them retreating into the darkness, their howls fading into the distance. From the house, Tom reported the same, the creatures fleeing, abandoning their attack. We'd won. Brutus collapsed beside the alpha's body. He was bleeding from dozens of wounds, his breath coming in labored gasps. Diana was beside him instantly, her vet training taking over despite her shaking hands. "Pressure on the neck wound," she ordered. "Mitchell, get the medical kit from the barn. Martinez, I need light." The generator kicked back in. Navarro had gotten it running. The floodlights blazed to life, revealing the carnage. 3 dead werewolves, 2 more severely wounded but crawling away. Blood everywhere, on the ground, on the barn, on us. And Brutus, lying in a spreading pool of his own blood, his eyes half closed. "Stay with me, buddy," Diana whispered, her hands working frantically to close the worst wounds. "You did it. You saved us. Just stay with me." I brought the kit, and together we worked. Tom and the deputies helped, following Diana's instructions. Navarro documented everything with his camera, murmuring into a recorder about pack behavior and combat tactics. It took an hour to stabilize Brutus. His wounds had stopped bleeding, his breathing had evened out. Diana had used an entire bottle of surgical adhesive and what seemed like miles of gauze. "He needs a hospital," she said. "But I don't think we can move him." "He'll heal," Navarro said, kneeling beside us. "I've seen it before with animals that fight werewolves. If they survive the first hour, they usually pull through. The wounds aren't cursed or infected. They're just wounds." As dawn broke, we sat in the barn surrounded by the evidence of the night's battle. The dead werewolves were already starting to change, their bodies reverting to human form. We'd have explanations to make, questions to answer. But we were alive. And Brutus, despite everything, had protected his family. The Hartwell family's battle in Texas is a savage reminder that some bonds between man and beast run deeper than blood, and that true monsters don't always walk on 4 legs. The darkness still stirs beyond the property line, and we'll be here to witness what emerges when it strikes again. Like this video, if you felt the raw terror of that brutal fight. Comment below what shocked you more, the werewolf's intelligence or Brutus's unwavering loyalty to his family. Share it with someone who needs to know that legends are real, and sometimes the greatest protector is the one we least expect. And if you dare to face what lurks in the shadows, subscribe to Mr. Midnight Horror and hit that notification bell, because when the darkness comes calling, you'll want to know you're not standing alone.